In the vast reaches of the galaxy, humanity had made its mark. Though it was a relatively young species compared to the ancient civilizations that populated the stars, humans were now a force to be reckoned with. Yet, despite their rapid advancements, they were often underestimated by the other species of the galactic community. Many looked at humanity's rise as a fleeting moment in the grand history of the universe. They saw humans as fragile, untested in the deep, cold voids of space, and prone to fear the unknown, particularly the dark. For eons, darkness had been something to avoid, an entity that concealed dangers lurking in the depths of the cosmos. It was a place where the bravest civilizations feared to tread. To many alien races, darkness was synonymous with weakness, and they assumed humans shared this same terror. The reality, however, was far different from what they expected. The first signs of this misunderstanding came when humans ventured further into the unknown and encountered a race that had learned to thrive in darkness. The Krelian, a shadowy and eerie species, had evolved in an environment without light. Their entire civilization was built around the absence of brightness, adapting to the eternal night of their home planet. The Krelian were cold-blooded, ruthless, and efficient in the dark, capable of hunting down any victim who dared to venture into their domain. To them, darkness was not a fear to be avoided, but an ally to be embraced. They believed that their advantage over the rest of the galaxy was absolute, especially when they discovered that many species, including humans, feared the blackness that surrounded them in space. It was then that the Krelian made their move, confident that they could easily assert dominance over the humans, whom they viewed as no more than fragile creatures scurrying in the shadows. They began by launching a series of stealth attacks, capturing human vessels that strayed too far from the safety of light. With terrifying precision, the Krelian would disable their prey's power, plunging the ships into absolute darkness. The Krelian watched with bated breath, expecting the human crews to panic, to fall apart under the weight of their greatest fear. But to their surprise, something extraordinary happened. On one such occasion, a human exploration ship, the Starward, was caught in the grip of a Krelian ambush while mapping a distant sector. The crew, led by Captain Ethan Ross, were taken by complete surprise. Their ship's systems were disabled, and the surrounding space became pitch black, making it impossible to see or communicate. The Krelian expected the humans to break down, in terror, scrambling to escape, but instead, the crew did the opposite. They rallied. As the minutes ticked by in the endless dark, Captain Ross remained calm, guiding his crew through the situation with cold determination. He was well aware that the Krelian were watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. Instead of succumbing to panic, the humans relied on their training and resourcefulness. They activated the emergency systems, relying on thermal scanners, infrared, optics, and their knowledge of the vessel's design to work in complete silence. Their focus became singular: to survive. The crew moved with precision, silently coordinating their efforts in the void. They didn't scream or cry out, they adapted. The Krelian, confused by this unexpected calm, watched in disbelief as the humans slowly regained control. Rather than panicking, they were systematically disabling the Krelian's attack systems and fortifying their ship. And when the moment came, they struck back. Captain Ross ordered the crew to launch a surprise counterattack, using an EMP device that temporarily blinded the Krelian sensors, allowing the humans to escape the ambush. It was an extraordinary display of resilience. The Krelian had assumed they were dealing with a species that would cower in fear in the dark. But what they found instead was a humanity that had learned to thrive in adversity, using their intellect and courage to turn the tables. In the aftermath of the attack, when the Krelian returned to their shadows, nursing their bruised egos, the message was clear. Humanity was not afraid of darkness. They were not fragile, and they would not break under pressure. The galaxy had misunderstood them. The humans had shown, in the most terrifying of circumstances, that when faced with the unknown, they did not run or hide. They fought. They adapted. They survived. The Krelians' assumptions were shattered, and with them, the idea that humans were weak in the face of darkness. What the galaxy didn't yet know was that this was only the beginning. The first true test of humanity's resilience came aboard the Cerrado, a human exploration vessel, which found itself stranded in an ancient and forgotten space station deep in a desolate region of the galaxy. The station, a relic from an era long past, was devoid of power, its lights dim and systems malfunctioning. As soon as the crew entered the station, they were plunged into complete darkness, surrounded by the eerie silence of the void. There was no sign of life, no way to communicate with the outside world, and no hope of rescue. To any other species, this would have been a death sentence, a chance for panic, fear, and surrender. But not to the humans aboard the Cerrado. Captain? Sarah Delacroix, a seasoned leader who had spent most of her life in the cold stretches of space, refused to let her crew fall victim to despair. She knew the Krelian were watching, waiting to see if humanity would once again crumble under the weight of darkness. They believed humans would panic, flickering lights, cold sweats, chaos. But instead, what the Krelian saw was something completely unexpected. The human crew, though surrounded by an inky blackness that seemed to consume all light, remained calm and collected. They moved with purpose, relying on their ingenuity and experience to adapt to the situation. In the eerie stillness of the darkened station, the crew didn't flinch or hesitate. They activated their emergency equipment, night vision optics, thermal scanners, and infrared technology, tools that had been standard issue for deep space missions. These devices allowed them to see what others could not. Through the eyes of these machines, the humans didn't just survive the darkness. They thrived in it. The crew was able to navigate the abandoned station with precision, maintaining order in a place where chaos was expected to reign. They knew the station's layout, and they knew how to move through its shadowed halls like ghosts, unseen, unheard. But it wasn't just about surviving the dark. The Krelian, lurking in the depths, had hoped to ambush the humans. They had set their traps, expecting to catch the humans off guard, to see them cower in terror when the station's power failed. What the Krelian didn't anticipate was that humanity's fearlessness in the face of darkness would turn their advantage into a disadvantage. Captain Delacroix and her crew had been prepared for this. They knew their enemy, and they understood. The one truth the Krelian had never considered: humans didn't fear the dark. They used it. The Krelian's first strike came swiftly, silent movements in the blackness, an attempt to take out the crew one by one. But the humans weren't frozen in place. Instead, they took cover, working together like a well-oiled machine. Delacroix, ever the tactician, gave her crew a simple command: counterattack. And counterattack they did. Using the very darkness the Krelian had relied upon to trap them, the human crew turned the tables. The Krelian, whose eyes could see only in low-light conditions, were no match for the humans' advanced technology. With quick, coordinated moves, the humans picked off the Krelian attackers one by one, surprising them with pinpoint precision. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. The Krelian, disoriented by the humans' ability to fight back in the very environment they thrived in, began to lose their composure. They had underestimated their prey. What had been a carefully planned ambush now turned into a battle for survival for the Krelian, who found themselves outwitted at every turn. The humans, using their tools and their brains, didn't just survive. They took control. The Krelian, now realizing they had been outmatched, had no choice but to retreat. In the end, the once feared species that had preyed on weaker civilizations were forced to flee from the humans they had written off as fragile. As the Krelian ships disappeared into the void, their commanders left with their pride shattered. The message was clear: humanity was not afraid of the dark. It was never about the darkness itself. It was about how you faced it. The news of the Cerratos' victory spread quickly across the galaxy, reaching even the farthest corners of space. The myth that humans were weak in the face of darkness began to unravel. The perception of humanity started to shift. No longer were humans seen as helpless creatures in need of protection. Now, they were seen as resourceful, determined, and powerful. The galaxy began to take notice of this seemingly fragile species that had turned fear into strength. The Krelian weren't the only ones who had seen the shift. The entire galactic community now watched, wondering just how much more humanity had to show. After their victory in the Dark Station, humanity's reputation across the galaxy began to shift. The Krelian, once confident that humans were a weak, fragile species, had been forced to retreat in the face of unexpected resistance. But it wasn't just the Krelian who were paying attention. Other galactic species, who had long underestimated humanity, began to reassess their views. They had witnessed firsthand how humans had defied the dark, turned it into a weapon, and fought back with unyielding determination. A council of species, including some of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, convened to discuss this new threat: humanity. On the surface, they expressed caution, acknowledging the humans' unexpected resilience, but beneath the surface, a growing concern spread among the council members. What if humanity was far more powerful than they had ever imagined? What if the humans weren't just survivors, but a force that could change the balance of power in the galaxy? The council couldn't deny that humanity had something unique, an instinct to push forward, to endure even in the harshest conditions. They had faced darkness, both literal and metaphorical, and not only survived, but triumphed. As this new reality set in, many factions began to reconsider their earlier dismissals of humans, now seeing them as a potential threat to their own positions of power. Some even whispered that humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer just as passengers on the interstellar stage. They might be on their way to becoming the dominant force in the universe. As whispers of humanity's strength spread, a new mission was soon proposed by the Galactic Council, one that would test humanity's resolve even further. A human exploration vessel, the Zenith, was tasked with venturing into the heart of uncharted space, into a region that was known across the galaxy for being dangerous, mysterious, and haunted by terrifying creatures. The sector, known as the Umbricon Expanse, had been avoided by many species for centuries. Tales of the Umbricon, creatures that thrived in eternal darkness, had spread throughout the galaxy. These malevolent beings were said to be nearly impossible to defeat. Ships that had ventured into their domain were never heard from again, and entire fleets had been swallowed up without a trace. The galaxy had long accepted this as a place to avoid, an area where only the bravest or the most foolish dared venture. But for humanity, there was no hesitation. Under the leadership of Captain Sarah Delacroix, the Zenith set its course for the heart of the Expanse, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them. Captain Delacroix, who had already proven her resourcefulness and unshakable resolve in the darkness of the abandoned station, was determined to show the galaxy that humanity was more than just a force to be reckoned with. They were a force, capable of mastering the very things that terrified others. As the Zenith entered the Umbricon Expanse, the crew prepared for the worst. They knew the stories, knew the dangers that awaited them. Yet, they were not afraid. With advanced technology, combat training, and a fierce determination to survive, the crew of the Zenith embraced the unknown. They would not hide in fear or retreat into the shadows. Instead, they moved forward with a single purpose: to face the Umbricon and conquer the darkness that had swallowed so many others. It didn't take long for the crew to encounter the Umbricon, creatures that seemed to materialize out of the very darkness itself, their glowing eyes pierced through the blackness, their terrifying forms moving with unnatural grace. The Umbreon attacked without warning, swift and deadly, their advanced hunting tactics designed to exploit the weakness of their prey. But what they didn't count on was the humans' ability to adapt. With their thermal vision and infrared scanners, the crew of the Zenith could see the Umbreon in ways that the creatures had never anticipated. They didn't hesitate. Instead of cowering, the humans launched a full assault, using their technology and superior tactics to outmaneuver the creatures. They fought back with precision, refusing to be overwhelmed by fear. As the battle raged on, the humans, unshaken by the dark, used the very environment the Umbreon had once controlled to their advantage. They turned the tides, using their knowledge of survival and their unbreakable will to press forward. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that humanity could not only endure the dark, but conquer it. In the end, the Rao Zenith's crew succeeded in clearing the expanse of the Umbreon, marking the first time anyone had ever done so. This achievement sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy, signaling to the rest of the universe that humanity was not merely a survivor of darkness, they were its masters. The tale of their victory would resonate throughout the galaxy for centuries to come, marking humanity's rise as a powerful force in the universe. The humans had shown once again that when faced with the unknown, they didn't retreat. They fought, they thrived, and they emerged stronger than ever before. The galaxy had witnessed a new kind of strength, one that could not be ignored. The galaxy had changed. Humanity, once dismissed as fragile and easily broken, had proven itself to be a force unlike any other. The Krelian, who had first underestimated humans and thought them weak in the face of darkness, had learned that humanity not only survived in the dark, but thrived there. With the defeat of their ambush and the fall of the Umbreon, humanity's reputation had spread far and wide. No longer just a young species, Earth and its colonies were now regarded as an unpredictable and formidable power. But the Krelian, stung by their defeat, could not let go of their arrogance. They knew they had made a grave mistake, and they intended to correct it once and for all. In a desperate attempt to crush humanity's spirit and remind the galaxy of their dominance, the Krelian launched a full-scale retaliation. A massive fleet, unlike anything humanity had seen before, was sent straight for Earth. The Krelian believed this was their moment to eliminate the threat once and for all. Their plan was simple but horrifying. They would plunge humanity back into darkness, robbing them of everything they had fought so hard to protect. To do this, they deployed a colossal weapon, a massive artificial black hole capable of consuming entire stars and casting entire regions of space into eternal night. They would use it to create a blockade around Earth and its colonies, cutting off all light and leaving humanity to face the terror of darkness without any hope of escape. When the Krelian fleet arrived at Earth's doorstep, they unleashed their terrifying weapon. The black hole swallowed the light from distant stars, plunging the human colonies into a permanent state of darkness. Entire planets, once bathed in the warmth of the sun, were now lost to shadow. The Krelian believed that in the absence of light, humanity would fall apart. They expected the colonies to panic, to descend into chaos. But what they discovered instead was something they had never considered. Humanity was not afraid of the dark. At first, the Krelian watched in disbelief as the human response unfolded. Instead of cowering in fear or crumbling under the pressure, humanity united like never before. The human colonies, once scattered and isolated, now banded together with a shared purpose. Earth's vast resources, once seen as a mere fraction of the galaxy's power, were now harnessed in ways the Krelian never anticipated. Ships, once reliant on light for navigation, adapted quickly. Humanity's ingenuity knew no bounds as they developed new technologies and tactics for fighting. In the dark, powerful beacons were constructed, turning the very cities and colonies that the Krelian had darkened into fortresses of light. The human spirit had become a weapon, and it was one the Krelian had no idea how to counter. The human fleets, once considered weak and vulnerable, now took to the stars in coordinated formations, using the beacon-powered ships to guide their way through the black void. The Krelian, whose senses had been designed to thrive in the dark, were blindsided by the precision and unity of the human forces. The humans did not flinch in the face of this overwhelming darkness. Instead, they fought back with everything they had, using the very conditions the Krelian had created to their advantage. The Krelian, who believed they could crush humanity's resolve with nothing more than a lack of light, were now faced with an enemy that was growing stronger with each passing moment. As the battle raged on, the Krelian fleet found themselves outmatched by the humans' unexpected tactics. The humans were not just fighting to survive, they were fighting to prove that they would never bow to the shadows. The Krelians' blockade, once thought to be an impenetrable force, began to break apart under the weight of humanity's unyielding resistance. The Krelian fleet, stunned by the humans' ability to adapt and overcome, began to falter. Slowly but surely, the human forces pushed back. The artificial black hole, once an indomitable weapon, was neutralized by human ingenuity and strategic brilliance. In the end, the Krelian fleet was forced to retreat, their morale shattered and their plans in ruins. The humans had turned the very darkness the Krelian had used against them into a source of their strength. Earth and its colonies had not only survived, they had triumphed. This victory sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy, sending a clear message to every species. Humanity could no longer be underestimated. Their spirit, their resilience, and their unwavering resolve had proven that no force in the galaxy could break them. The balance of power had shifted, and the galaxy was forced to recognize humanity as a true and formidable force in the universe. The Krelian, who once thought they could bring humanity to its knees, now faced a much harsher reality. The humans had not only withstood their assault, they had crushed it. The battle for humanity's survival had left its mark on the galaxy, and the ripples of that momentous conflict would be felt for generations. The Krelian, who had once believed themselves untouchable, had been forced to sign a peace treaty with Earth, their once overbearing confidence shattered. They had failed to break humanity's spirit, and now they had no choice but to acknowledge humanity as an equal force in the galaxy. The treaty was a public admission that the Krelian, once the predators of the dark, had been defeated by a species they had once thought incapable of standing up to them. The galaxy, watching in awe, understood that the humans were no longer to be dismissed. The Krelian had fallen, but humanity had risen to become a dominant power in the cosmos. In the aftermath, the balance of power across the galaxy was irrevocably altered. Species that had once viewed humans as expendable or weak now sought alliances. The galaxy's ancient civilizations, long accustomed to the idea that only the strongest species survived, looked to humanity with newfound respect. They saw now that it wasn't just physical strength that mattered, but the will to face the darkest corners of the universe and come out victorious. Humanity's greatest strength was not in their weapons or technology alone. It was in their unbreakable spirit. Where others would hide in fear of the dark, humans confronted it with courage, intelligence, and an unwavering determination. In the darkest reaches of the galaxy, humanity's light now shone the brightest. Captain Sarah Delacroix, the unflinching leader who had guided her crew through the darkest of moments, became a symbol of the human will to survive. She was no longer just the captain of a ship. She was the embodiment of humanity's refusal to bend or break in the face of the unknown. Her story, along with that of her crew, spread throughout the galaxy, a tale of bravery, intelligence, and courage that inspired species across the stars. The image of her standing firm in the face of darkness became an icon for all who heard it. It wasn't the light itself that had saved them, but their ability to confront the darkness without flinching, to find their strength even in the most hopeless of situations. Captain Delacroix became the face of the human spirit, showing that true strength lies not in avoiding darkness, but in standing firm when it threatens to consume everything around you. The galaxy, once so certain that humanity would fold under pressure, now recognized that humanity was more than capable of mastering even the most terrifying of forces. Humans had not only survived but had dominated the darkness, using their intelligence, creativity, and resilience to turn the tide of battle in their favor. The light they had created was not just a physical force, it was a symbol of everything humanity stood for: hope, determination, and the will to fight. From that moment forward, humans were no longer the ones hiding in the shadows. They had become the ones who cast them. Humanity's reputation as the ultimate survivors was now firmly cemented in galactic history. Species that once doubted them now looked to them for guidance, forming alliances that would forever change the course of the galaxy's future. The humans had proven that they could not only endure, but overcome, and their story became a testament to the strength of their will. No longer would the universe see humanity as a young and fragile species, easily crushed by the forces of darkness. Now, they were seen as a species that thrived in the face of the unknown, one that could stand firm when others faltered. The galaxy understood now. Humans didn't fear the dark. They became it. In every corner of the universe, where shadows once threatened to overwhelm, humans stood tall, casting their own light. They had mastered the dark, and in doing so, had carved out a place for themselves at the very heart of the galaxy. The once feared creatures of the void no longer had dominion. Humanity had claimed their place among the stars, and with it came an undeniable truth. In the deepest shadows, humanity's spirit burned the brightest.